prea de violent?
Nu, că nu am accesat și n-am avut timp să stau să cer drepturi.
Nu avem pe Alex.
I will record from here. I think this works. Yes, we have it live on YouTube. That's good.
So it's a one-way communication to Lviv?
We can have two-way if we want to. Because we do have chat.
You did a hangout on there? Or
Yeah, I did a hangout on there. So yeah, I shared the link actually.
Yeah, Jabra would be good if they want to speak or listen better.
I need to add them if they want to speak.
Well, at least they can listen with greater clarity if you.
Yeah, I need a Jabra.
Add a Jabra.
Let me go to this and grab a Jabra.
So, let's wait for the Jabra. Yeah.
Nu știu dacă este optim. Da, nu ești invitat. E public. I think it is public. E camera mea de Mac. Give me a sec to add the guys to the Hangout so that they can be heard. So you can join here. Okay.
Good.
Very good.
Okay. It would be nice if I could somehow understand if Lviv can hear me. Is somebody in communication with him?
Yeah, we have a Skype. Lviv, can you hear? If not, we switch to Skype and that's it. By the way, there's a bit of a lag. Excellent.
Okay, that's good.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Embe. Hello, Matt. Hello, Alex. Alex speaking. So,
Internet cable instead of Wi-Fi.
It's fine. Wi-Fi is fine.
Okay, I will say 5 words before we start, and then I will leave you to it. But first of all, welcome to the academy. So I don't know everyone here, so I thought I'll just ask who is actually attending this DevOps Academy. So I'm Ebbe, I'm the CEO, and who are you?
My name is Radu Toder, you probably know me.
I do remember you, yes. Where are you from? What team are you in?
I'm from EveryMatrix front end, and I'm currently working at a web API version, which is used with transport service, and the Automatrix front end one, which is a servlet application.
I'm Vlad, System Administrator Team Lead. I'll be one of your teachers during this course. It's my first time in the academy, so please be gentle with me.
I'm Cosmin. I'm the new intern, sysadmin intern. I'm in the infrastructure team, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm Andrew. I'm from Brain Tech online.
So what do you do there? What is your job in Bitcoin?
Making programs that collect salts.
Okay.
I'm Gabriel. I'm working at EveryMatrix as a junior DevOps developer.
Hey, I'm Vladimir Yakov. I'm a junior JavaScript developer for EveryMatrix CDO. And then right now is putting EveryMatrix in production.
I'm Flavio Marian from UFE components team.
Yeah. And you Lviv guys?
yes, hello.
Yes, hello. It's
Me, Oleg, reporter, and Taras Kloba, also from EM Reporting.
Okay, so 2 reporting guys. Okay, so very well distributed. So a lot of front-end people here, of course, some infrastructure people, and then the reporting guys that sit with hardcore backend stuff. Good. All right. Well, that's actually reflects quite well why we have this academy, because DevOps comes up in a lot of our different projects, and throughout the last 2 years, the role of DevOps and the importance of DevOps has increased quite a lot. And yeah, considering that this is a quite old company, more than 10 years old, it's one of the things that actually has happened in the company that is noteworthy from a tech stack point of view. It's noteworthy that we have a situation where there's this gap between developers and infrastructure, where for a long time our infrastructure people could not really assist. They were not really up to speed with what we needed from the development point of view. And so what has happened has been, to a large extent, that the technology that we use today, and the most advanced technology we use today, has been introduced by various curious developers. Polaka, who's one of the teachers, is one of those. Jerry in China is one of those. And so they have sort of been, the bannermen of introducing this, and this, of course, has been a good thing, but also shown us that we needed to upgrade. And that upgrade has to happen on both the infrastructure side, the people who help the developers, and the developers themselves. What is also very clear is that if you don't know DevOps, then you cannot really be a good developer these days, because the application you're going to write must have DevOps in mind when you start writing it. And I'll mention a couple of other things that are happening in the company at the moment that highlight this. So 2 of the most exciting projects we have today are happening in the top of Europe, in cold Norway, where we are installing application in their racks, in their server rooms. We control everything, but we have to make an install there. And the hardware part and installation part of this is a large, sit down. It's a large unknown and a large risk in this project, and one that has led to many concerns. We seem to be on top of it, but still, it's a large concern for us to do this. It's the first time we ever have a client where we check the application and do a local install for them. Second project that's happening more or less at the same time and very far away is in Taiwan, where we have now a set of servers there, and where we are putting more or less the same applications up, including also a couple of more applications, and we do this for latency reasons, such that Asian players getting Asian content don't have to do the round trip to go via Europe to our servers there. So it will benefit our sales and our delivery in Asia to have this. So for both cases, what we have is a challenge in rolling out the application, in managing the application going forward, in doing the deploys for this application, in ensuring that this application scales. You obviously, when you made your second and your third environment, you don't want to put up 100 servers as we have in Bucharest. You are worried about over provisioning, and the technologies that you're going to study are key to both efficient and fast rollout, efficient maintenance, easy deploys, and easy scalability. All of it very, very, very key. So this is why we see this from a business point of view being so important today. And when we recognize this, we saw also throughout the last 1.5 years, several of our projects from UBO to the new reporting system across the big EM2 project, applications where the projects at times got into blocking situations because of DevOps issues. And this is one of the reasons we have this acadEMy today. So as for the format of acadEMy, we have tried different formats in the past. This is a new variation. So there's no really rules about how to do academies. We made it up ourselves, and we're iterating on this ourselves as we go along. So this time around, we will have it with somewhat less intensity, which allows you guys to also manage your daytime jobs. Still, you're supposed to also give this effort, and your team leaders, we should thank, and we thank many people here, but we can start by thanking your team leaders for letting you skip jobs and sit here instead and learn something. But yeah, we'll see about the format. We're curious about that. So Daniela, who's here and who's organized all of this and has now tried to run several academies with us, will be looking at this and getting the feedback from you on how this works, if you have enough time, if the formats are right, and so on. So apart from everything else, this is also interesting for us to do. All right, I think that's enough of motivation. I will just thank you for coming here, for showing interest, and for being curious and becoming smarter to benefit our results and make a little bit this glorious company. I would like to thank also the teachers whom I know and appreciate are extremely busy, exactly because of these DevOps things being at the moment quite hot issues. I know both Alex and Matt have a lot of things on their plate over the summer due to EM2 rollout, due to the nose tipping and the Taiwan cases that I also already mentioned. So for them to squeeze in the time here, I know it takes a extra effort for you guys. So I very much appreciate that as well. Okay, that's it for me. So I will leave to you guys to take over, and hi to Lviv. Have fun. This is also the first time we try to do this remote, and I'm quite skeptical of how it's going to work, but let's see. At least the format with fewer hours per day should make it a little bit more digestible, but let's see how it works. Okay, Good, and good luck. See you in 5 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Evan.
Want to say a couple of things?
Yeah. Welcome, so they can see us too.
Yeah.
You enjoying today? No, just yeah. So, so I think obviously what Ebe said. The one thing I wanted to point out was what because this was something that was a bit hard for us to fully understand was the difference between like sort of summer academy and regular, training that you would get like on the job. Yeah. So this is summer academy. This is meant to be primarily for yourselves. This is a learning experience. EveryMatrix is not obviously knows that the way if you grow as people that this helps the company, but this is not directly meant to be like job training. And I say that because we will need to be doing DevOps training throughout the company, not to developers, to QA, to infrastructure and everything. And we will do that hopefully in the fall. A lot will depend on how things go here. So the key here is to be learning, hopefully having a bit of fun. And we obviously have a mixed group here too, so there's much different levels. So for some of you, some topics will be things that you've done for the last 5 years of your life. For some of you, this will be the first time you've ever tried to. So bear that in mind. As for the format, we are 3 days a week, right?
Yes.
9 to 1 p.m. every day.
4 days a week.
3 days a
3
week.
days.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the next 4 weeks plus 1 week. Yeah. It is important to try and be here on time at 9 because the instructor-led part of the day starts at 9. Because of time commitments and also because this is meant to be quite hands-on. It'll only be the first sort of hour-ish, depending on how much Alex talks, where there will be sort of instruction, and then you'll be given time to work on things. So again, those of you who are a little bit more senior, been doing things for a while, might get through some of the tutorials very quickly, or might even decide that you need to get back to your desk and work on other things and do the tutorials on your own. For others, you have this room pretty much all day, yeah? So certainly until 1 p.m., you're encouraged to sit here, ask questions of each other, work together, and to go through the different. So I think every day there'll be some kind of an assignment. So with regards to communication, you can see we're here on YouTube, although that doesn't really impact yourselves. Alex has also been kind enough to set up a Slack community. What?
I went from Mattermost to the end. Anyway. Yeah.
All right. Let's change. So we'll get a Mattermost group. So we'll want to get you all set up on that, and that will be a good way to ask questions. Alex also will, not myself, probably won't be here every day till 1. If you need to ask us questions, that's what we encourage is to go into the channels there and collaborate together.
Yeah. The Mattermost channel is in my slides, so you'll see it then. The reason I went for it is because it provides full persistent history, which is searchable, which I think is important for these kind of activities. Also, I think online communication and Q&As are a bit better than face-to-face, as issues can get resolved easier and at any time. So yeah, I encourage you to use it as much as possible.
Okay. Any questions about kind of like logistics or the format or anything?
I was thinking about Slack and YouTube. Maybe we should do Skype or something, because I'm not in a Skype group right now. We should make a Skype group with all of us here and these guys. If I'm not there, please add me.
Yes, but they are not added yet. So I will add it and I'll create also a Skype for inviting questions and we have both of them, Slack and Skype.
Perfect.
So today, in 1 hour, you'll be in the Skype.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yep. Okay. So, you ready to present?
Yes.
Okay. So Alex is going to go through a little bit of introduction to DevOps, and a bit of covering the history, and afterwards we will get our hands on it.
Yeah. But I decided that I wanted persistence, which Slack free doesn't provide. Yeah. And for a limited duration, I think 3 months. And I want to have them forever. Okay, while projector warms up, let me just switch to my slides. Present. Please send me an SMS. Thank you. Actually, let's switch to this really fast. Can Lviv see my screen? Guys?
Yes, yes, yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have 2 of them. Give me a second to find the eraser. There we go. And projector light. Just a second to get to my speaker view. Seems to be fine. Okay, good. So, why are we here? Because we're here because we want to talk about DevOps. And usually the first question that arises when we talk about DevOps is, what is DevOps? And now, DevOps is a highly misunderstood topic. A lot of people, so basically if you'd ask anyone in a number of companies, they all answer you with different things. And it's a really common problem that people think that DevOps is a role, right? It's this person that you go to whenever you have some sort of an operational problem. And I think that is false. And what we're going to be talking during today is actually what DevOps is, what problems does it actually address, and what can DevOps do for you guys. So Wikipedia actually has a very convoluted definition of what DevOps is. It's something in the lines of is a software development and delivery process that emphasizes communication, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. You can read for yourselves later. So my point of view is that DevOps is a culture. DevOps isn't a role, isn't a person. It's something that everybody in a company does in order to further the bond between developers and operations. So, come on, speaker view. It doesn't want to. No, not this one. Okay, so different resolution. So with DevOps, there's this gap between the developers and the operation people. We call this the wall of confusion. And usually developers want to innovate. They want to do stuff. They want to use the latest tech, the newest tech, to be on the bleeding edge. And usually complain that operations is slow. We are the ones that create real value. And on the other side of the wall, there's the operations guys who they care about stability. They have to maintain that system in production. They have to make sure it's stable, that it runs, that it doesn't have incidents, that whenever it has incidents, the time to recovery is small. So usually you end up with something like, devs don't know real production. We protect the actual value. And there's this constant struggle between developers and operations people, because realistically, there's no collaboration. I mean, how many of you are doing Agile nowadays? So those of you who are doing Agile might remember the dark days before this was a mainstream thing, when everybody was doing waterfall. And with waterfall, what you ended up doing was somebody would create a project plan. and then they would do requirements, then they would do analysis, then they would throw it to the developers to code, and then that code was handed to operations, and they had to take care of it. And the problem is that code gets handed down to ops, with developers not really thinking about how it actually runs in production. And you end up with the type of issue, I need to do this, where ops aren't actually involved in architecture planning. And eventually defects end up getting in production. When something bad happens, there's a lot of finger pointing. Things like, I don't know, ops didn't configure the app properly, or some dependency wasn't installed, or from the other side, the developers are using this version of this library that has a known vulnerability. Stuff like that actually is very, very toxic for the environment. Also, there are usually long delays because of this waterfall system. It takes a long time before people can actually do things. So for example, if you want to start to put a new application in production, you need to wait for sign up from management. You need to wait for infrastructure to actually buy the servers. You need to wait for the servers to arrive, get to the data center, so on and so forth. So basically the problem is that with this kind of a system, welcome Tika, with this kind of a system, what you end up with is a long chain of delays. Also, usually in this kind of a culture, servers are actually treated as pets. So I have my pet server Fluffy. When I have my apps running on it, whenever something goes wrong, I manually SSH into the server. I fix it. I debug it there. If the server goes down, I'm basically screwed because, well, Fluffy. Oh no, they killed Fluffy. Yeah. So these are some of the problems that DevOps tries to address, right? And this was supposed to be look better, but unfortunately, projector resolution isn't helping me. So what it would say is, work in dev, ops problem now. Okay, so then there came Agile. And how many of you know what Agile is? Agile. And what the Agile Manifesto says. Okay, so along came Agile. And that gave developers a set of tools to actually streamline their development process. So it allows them to actually have a simpler workflow, be able to release more often changes. But if you actually think in terms of the big waterfall, I think in the middle, which is development, has become Agile, but everything else has stayed waterfall. So actually, what happens in reality in most companies is that developers do Agile, and then they still hand over code and applications to operations to manage them, and there's still the wall of confusion between everyone, and there's still the same pain points. It's just the developers get to actually have a better quality of life. So then came the cloud, and that's actually what sparked DevOps. So when the cloud came, infrastructure management became ubiquitous. It was really, really, really easy for someone with almost zero knowledge of sysadmin and how to manage hardware, how to update firmware on servers, yada, 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 hard things, do networks, to actually host a couple of servers in AWS or G-Cloud or whatever. So that's when the DevOps movement actually started. And now, with the DevOps movement, now cloud allows you to think of about infrastructure like a new set of toys, right? You now have easy access to servers that you can rebuild whenever you want to, that start up really fast. I think startup time on AWS is about a couple of minutes, and on G-Cloud it's lower than that. And it allows you to destroy and recreate things and treat them as cattle. So there's this metaphor called cattle versus pets, where you think of nodes as cattle that you can always slaughter and replace, as opposed to pets which you love and caress and whatnot. And protect, yeah. So you should never think of servers as pets. They should always be cattle, because that gives you a couple of advantages that we'll talk about a bit later. So my speaker view isn't really working, so I'm going to do it this way. So what I ended up understanding from DevOps is that DevOps is the practice of operations and development engineering participating together in the entire service lifecycle, from design through the development process to support. So what does this mean? Can anyone? Okay, so what this means is basically that, as I mentioned when I started, there isn't a set DevOps role. DevOps is a culture where operations and developers actually cross the boundary and start doing similar things. So operations start to embrace things such as infrastructure as code, where they adopt a couple of practices from the development world, and developers start doing things like provisioning, managing production with services such as passives. I'm sure some of you have heard about Heroku, for example, which is a platform as a service that allows me as a developer to just run my code there, manage the production, but actually not have to care about infrastructure. So there are three pillars of DevOps. It's infrastructure automation, continuous delivery, and reliability engineering. And we'll go into them one by one. And we will also treat them separately and individually across the whole duration of this course. Also, I like this quote from the 2015 State of DevOps, which says, high-performance IT organizations with 30 times more frequently, with 200 times shorter lead times, and they have 60 times fewer failures and recover from issues 168 faster. That's a lot of numbers, first and foremost. But what does it mean? Basically, by doing DevOps as a culture and continuously delivering, doing things like monitoring and alerting properly, very important to do them properly, you actually manage to get faster code faster in production. And that's very important, very important. Okay, so let's talk about infrastructure automation. So can anyone tell me if you have any idea what this means? What would it entail? Oh.
Basically, you can create instances in cloud by using a management tool such as Terraform.
Okay.
And, by using Terraform, you just write code and.
Okay, that was the easy question. Now the hard one. Why would I do it?
Because it's easier than doing it manually.
Is it?
Not necessarily easily, but you can duplicate.
Bingo.
You can duplicate the infrastructure in another place.
That's actually the most important bit, that you can actually recreate the infrastructure. So with infrastructure as code, we want to automate everything. Things like infrastructure provisioning, so setting up servers, to application deployment, to testing. We want to test everything, to runtime orchestration with systems like Kubernetes or passes like Heroku. We want to make sure everything is automated end-to-end, because that gives us two things. We stop thinking in terms of pets, because everything is automated, everything can be destroyed and recreated. And I forgot what I wanted to say. I'm sorry. Anyway, and the second thing, and that's a very important principle that actually gives us this possibility to recreate things, is that builds should be reproducible. Everything. So if I just create something, destroy it, and create it again, it should be identical. Yeah, minus some IDs maybe. So why do we do it? Well, usually, I don't know, who here deploys applications to various environments, production? You deploy things to production. I'm sure you deploy things to production. I know that bald guy over there deploys things to production from time to time. Okay. So how long does it take you to actually do a deploy to get from code to working product?
I want to say something because I started with doing deploy on Tomcat.
Yeah.
Sure, if anyone knows about Tomcat, it's a server container. First, we done it manually. We have to SSH into the server, start Tomcat, remove some files, remove some temporary files, then copy the new URL archive, then start the application and so on. But then Jenkins come into place to help us, and we did all this scripting in Jenkins, and you just click a button right now, and the deploy is made automatically, doing all the scripts behind it. But not all the people knows what the deploy happens. They just know that's a button there.
Yeah, that's awesome, actually, really awesome. But you still didn't answer the question, how long does it take you to get from code to prod? Estimate.
Yeah.
Guesstimate. Big number, high level.
Only the deployment, it takes a while because we have a deploy job for every machine.
So it takes a while. Okay, excellent. And if you, for some reason, had to add a new server, for example, let's say North Tipping decides to also buy EveryMatrix, how hard would that be? To add a new machine, or new machines actually?
If we do new machines, we just duplicate the terminal inputs to install multiple servers.
Let's just think in terms of one.
But it takes a while to install all the provisioning of the application and make the setup.
Is this a while, a couple of hours, a couple of days?
A couple of hours.
So it takes a couple of hours to provision a machine. Okay, that's...
And mostly you have to check the other machines to make like the template, because it won't work the deploy task for the new machine if it's not simple.
Exactly. That's very important actually to mention. So there's real pain in actually provisioning new things, new servers, new applications. And infrastructure automation solves that. And there's one principle that you need to keep in mind, which is that infrastructure needs to be immutable. So when you have set up a machine, a node, whatever, you never change it, you never touch it. You should not SSH into it. That's that's the most important thing. If you really need to change it, you destroy it and recreate it again with whatever change you want to apply. And that makes things predictable, first and foremost. So you can actually reason about what's on those servers. You know that all of them run OpenSSL version 1.2.3. You know that all of them have Node.js installed at some particular version. You don't have to actually go to the server, see what does this server have installed, because everybody patched it by hand. You know, you just know. So nodes should actually be treated as cattle, not pets. Because when you SSH into a server, when you start updating it by hand, when you start modifying config files by hand, you're treating it as a pet. You can no longer slaughter it because you won't be able to reproduce it. So, benefits. Infrastructure as code allows you to actually minimize defects due to subtle differences in application nodes, which we discussed. It allows you to actually destroy and recreate servers with ease, knowing that they'll be identical to the other ones. And of course, it actually does do another thing that we haven't covered, which is provides fault toleration. So, for example, how do you deploy your app in production? As you're the production guy today. Do you have zero downtime?
Because we have a cluster of 2 servers, we deploy each of them and we wait until the first one starts and then deploy the other.
So you do a rolling update?
Yes.
That's what that is.
And we manually wait for it.
This is one of the ways in which you can do fault tolerance. But you need to actually do it by hand if you don't automate. I don't know how you do it per se. I assume because you manage manual. Okay, so you can do another way of doing actually zero downtime fault tolerant deploys is called blue-green deployments. With blue-green deployments, you have the two servers that Radu mentioned. You have them running in production at version 1.0. You want to release 1.1. What you do is, instead of updating the old servers, you actually create two more, deploy 1.1 on those two servers, run whatever test suite you have to actually validate if they're okay, and then you just move the traffic to the new servers. This is called blue-green. And then you deprovision the old servers.
The main thing here, sorry to interrupt you, is that applications are not necessarily designed for this kind of blue-green deployments, because they would have to have some kind of health check to say when I'm up, so I can start rolling down the other one.
You can actually do the last step by hand, because it's actually just a switch. You just switch traffic from one to the other via the old balancer. So you don't actually need to, you can actually check that the app's already, you can actually run a test suite, an integration test suite on the new version, make sure it works, make sure its business works correctly, it has no bugs, which is something that you cannot do with rolling updates or with any other mechanism. You cannot ahead of time validate that production actually works, that you may not have worked a database update script, for example. So this is something that only blue-green deployments give you.
But say what you said again.
Pardon? What do you
mean? Me? Well, you have to have some kind of health checks to know when your applications are up, so you can put down the other ones. You'll have to have a green light for all your infrastructure, and also I'm thinking about something here. You cannot have third parties here.
What do you mean by third parties?
So the point I wanted to make though was you said the applications have to be designed.
Yes.
But that's actually a very good point. That's the whole point of what I was just saying at the beginning with DevOps. DevOps isn't just another silo where if someone develops an application, throws it all the wall, instead of being a sysadmin that catches it, it's a DevOps that catches it.
I was just underlining the point that
exactly. And that's a very important point. Is that, you know, DevOps and the whole concept of it starts from the very initial planning part of before you even start writing applications. I mean, a very typical example is configurations, right? So in the old days, you might do applications where your configurations are inside the code, you know. And it's only when you start to, and that works. You run that on your machine, it's going to work 100% of the time. It's only when you try and start deploying it in different places, you know, give it to Vlad to say, okay, now deploy this, that all of a sudden you think, oh, wait a second. So configurations, we have to change how we approach this. So it's a similar kind of.
And I wanted to point something else to here. You see, we have transport service right now, and we have the backend API applications. If we have a production environment with two servers connected to the transport service, and we deploy only the infrastructure with the backend servers, it's not going to work, because if you already connect to the transport service, the traffic already goes through it.
That's a long-way topic that I don't want to get into today.
I was just trying to underline that immutable must go to all of the matching places of the infrastructure.
Immutable has design. Immutable should be everywhere, and it should be by design.
I have a short question about the blue and green. Is the application, both the older one and the new one, connect to the same database?
They could. Generally, they do, because it's really hard to actually blue-green databases.
What happens if you need a database upgrade?
So what do you mean by upgrade? Change the schema or the data?
Yeah.
Usually, there are ways of doing this. So let's say you make a breaking change in the schema.
Yeah.
What you want to do is to actually make an incremental change. So let's say I have a person table that has ID, name, and address. And in the new version of the data of the application, I want to remove the address field and move it to another table and have an address table, so that I allow the user to have more than one address. What I would do is, initially, I would leave the address inside of the table, create a new table in the relations.
Making a breaking change in 2 steps.
Yeah, you're making a breaking change in 2 steps so that you can actually run both versions in parallel. Of course, this cannot be done always. So at some point, you're going to have downtime. For example, long data migrations, those are going to have downtime. It cannot be avoided 100% of the times, especially with databases. But in some cases, like the one that in my example, you can do it. There are workarounds. Yeah. It's hacky, but it works. And it's the only way it actually does work for that case. Okay, moving on. So what are the tools of the trade for infrastructure automation? So we have a couple of categories, actually. So we have infrastructure modeling tools like AWS CloudFormation, which we are actually going to be talking about a bit. Actually, you're going to be learning how to use today. We have Terraform, which is a tool for provisioning infrastructure across probably all of the clouds. I don't think there's any one that they don't actually support. We have Azure ARM, which is Azure's cloud formation. We have Ubuntu Juju, which is similar to Terraform. And we have a couple of others, but I don't want to go into it. Okay. We also have hardware provisioning. So servers, physical metal servers. And there are tools for that as well. There's Packer, for example, which actually allows you to create images for hardware. Hello. Welcome. I think you came at a decent time. Okay, there's Packer, which allows you to generate images that you can run on VMs or bare metal servers. There's Machine as a Metal as a Service from the guys from Ubuntu, Canonical, which is a system for dynamically provisioning bare metal servers. We actually use this in our data center today to install operating systems and provision bare metal servers. This is really important because before this, that guy and the other guys from his team used to actually spend a couple of hours provisioning the server, installing operating systems, configuring hard drives and partitioning, configuring networks, configuring bonds. Everything takes a lot of time when you do it by hand. And there are all these subtle differences. And you can make mistakes. That's why I said there are subtle differences. So being able to automate at that level allows you to actually make sure that all of your servers are identical, and that your infrastructure is mutable. And you can actually apply immutable infrastructure principles to bare metal as well, because you provision a bunch of servers. You want to, for example, I have a bunch of servers in OpenStack. I want to take 2 of them and move them to Kubernetes. I just deprovision them, release them from NAS, and provision them in Kubernetes. And I can do the same the other way around, depending on our needs. So this allows us to actually move infrastructure from one place to another and make sure that it's identical to what we already have running there. We also have configuration management. This is a bit higher up the stack. And this basically allows us to actually manage configuration of the nodes, things that would be in the /etc folder. For example, I know the Nginx. And for that, we have things like Chef, Puppet, Ansible, SaltStack, CF Engine, and there's a couple of others that are less known. We ourselves use Ansible here, and that's what we'll be talking about during this course. But feel free to explore the alternatives. Then there's integration testing, which is also a form of automation. Things like RSpec or Ruby, things like Cucumber for doing the BDD, things like Protractor for testing and integration from your front end to the entire back end. These are things that you can use to make sure that your application actually works the way you expect it to work, and that all of the systems involved in the production workflow actually behave as they're expected. And then we have orchestration. Now, orchestration is a bigger topic because orchestration basically means I have these servers, this infrastructure, and I just want to tell them, deploy my app. I want it to be somewhere. I don't care actually where it is. And in that, Ansible falls in this category. You can actually orchestrate things with Ansible. You have things like Kubernetes. I didn't mention OpenStack. I should have. OpenStack, DCOS from Mesosphere. These are things that you give, for example, Kubernetes, which I know best. You basically give it the descriptor. This is what I want to have running. And it manages placement on servers. It manages health checking. It manages keeping the application running. If a node dies, it moves it to another node, so on and so forth. So there's orchestration. All of these actually make it so that you can have an entire development workflow that is 100% automated. Bam. I went up. I went up. OK. So let's move on to continuous delivery. Now, there's a really nice book written by Jens Humble and David Farley, which is called Continuous Delivery. I strongly recommend reading it if you haven't. It's basically only to know about integration, which is CI. And so continuous delivery is split into 3 steps. First, you have CI, which is continuous integration. And it handles the build and test phase of your project. So generating artifacts, making sure they actually are correct. So unit tests go here. Integration tests go here. Then you have deployment, which is CD, or continuous deployment. And that handles the deploy and integration phase. Move it to an environment, let's say stage, run a suite of integration tests, make sure it's OK. And then you have delivery, which is everything until production. That may involve multiple environments. They may involve on-demand environments. This is unspecified because it usually depends on the application. But the most important thing about CD, continuous delivery, is that it should be handled inside of the development team. You are the ones that know how the applications run, what they need in order to run. So the only thing that can be done is to actually collaborate with ops to help you set up your infrastructure and to provide you the infrastructure that you need as a service so that you can run your stuff. Now, a couple of best practices. Always working software, the agile way. Always release working software. Never leave the build broken. Another interesting thing is try to commit small things. Try to actually deploy small things. Never do a big change. If the change spans more than a couple of days, and that's a lot actually, more than a couple of hours is ideal, then it's too big. Now, there's a statistic that I didn't include in the slides because I was too lazy to make a table. But there's 3 types of organizations. There are the high performance, which deploy more than 20 times a day, maybe hundreds. Netflix, for example, deploys a couple of hundred times a day. Then there's the medium performers.
It's count per node or per infrastructure?
It counts per project. So Netflix, for their product, they have a couple of hundred microservices, and they do deployments a couple of hundred times a day for everything. It counts for everything. There are the medium performers, which do around 10, maybe 20 deploys a day. And then there are low performers, where deploys actually they happen monthly, maybe even at 6 months intervals, because that's how long it takes them to make sure that it's actually safe to deploy. And usually it's never safe to deploy, actually. I was having a chat with Cosmin Tudose a couple of days ago, and he said something that is really, really true about a lot of organizations. When you deploy to production, what you usually end up doing is you press the button and you pray. I hope this works. Then you see it work. OK, it's fine. Or it blows up and you need to roll back. That is a sign that you're on the lower end of the spectrum. You're afraid to deploy. Your changes are so big that you do not know what the impact of them is. And that's an anti-pattern in continuous delivery. Now, of course, the flaky tests, you should have tests. That's the most important bit. I didn't even bother to add this here. I think that's obvious. And the second thing is never leave the build broken, never allow tests to fail. If tests fail, go in there and fix them. You might actually find the problem with your app. And of course, what are the deliverables of a CI pipeline? It's an artifact, a log, and of course a status of success or failure. So this is what the CI pipeline would look like. This is actually from the course. It's a bit blurry on this projector. Maybe I can make it less blurry. I made it worse. Okay, there is no less blurry. Long story short, you have a set of inputs, usually your code, and then you have a couple of set of steps that happen. Either in parallel, for example, you may have unit tests, integration tests, behavioral tests that can run in parallel, or sequential. And usually sequential is first I build, then I test, then I deploy to a staging environment, then I deploy to production. Maybe test in between, maybe. I know, it doesn't actually matter what it says in there. The whole picture, the big picture of the pipeline matters. The point is that there are multiple steps.
No.
There are some squares. Yeah, there are some squares that are actually the steps. Okay. Yeah, my speaker view is still warped. Oh no, it works. Yay. Okay, so best practices for continuous delivery. Only build artifacts once. So you want to release version 1.1 of your app. And let's say it's a Java app and you release it as a var. You should only do it once. You don't need to redo it, as the artifact should be bit by bit identical to the old one if you release. So that's actually the second point. Artifacts should be immutable. They should not change across builds. If I build from commit whatever, it should be the same every time. Now, when you deploy to production, you shouldn't actually deploy to production. You should deploy to a copy of production. And that's blue in the blue-green example. You should never deploy to production because you end up with the pray and hope it works scenario. Because you actually don't know if it works. You never know if it works until you actually test it in the environment. This fourth one is actually common sense. If a previous step fails, for example, running tests, you should not allow you to deploy it. Yes. Yeah. And the last one, and this is the most important one, deployment should be idempotent. Does anyone know what that means?
No.
No?
No.
No idea? Basically, if you press the button to deploy to production 100 times like this, nothing should change. The deploy should happen, but nothing should actually change. If you diff the system, it should be identical. That's what idempotent means. I mean, it means that it should.
Kind of immutable code.
Yeah, it's kind of immutable. Idempotent, yeah, idempotent means that it always has the same result. Okay. Okay. Good. So reliability engineering. We're close to the end. What does reliability engineering mean? Anybody want to throw a guess about reliability engineering? That's one. Okay. What reliability engineering is basically it's designing the system for operation. So before the first line of code is written, you should think about how it runs in production. There's a really good book on that as well, which is released. So there are design patterns for creating resilient production systems. Think of the 12-factor app, for example. Also, if your app sucks, if your code isn't very well designed, nothing an operations team will do will be able to keep it up. Think of race conditions. Think of app crashes randomly because of seg faults, memory leaks, stuff like that. There's nothing an operations team can do in that case. And most importantly, developers need to take responsibility of their app in production. Bam. So what you want to do is to add operations into the dev, realistically speaking. You want the devs to actually at least think about operations. You want to be able to, you want to enhance your design with operational knowledge. Things like, where do my logs go? What happens if the app dies? Things like performance. How do I monitor performance? How do I health check the app? How do I know if it's alive? You should foster a culture of responsibility. You should have your developers responsible for whatever happens in production. Because if the app crashes in production because of a seg fault, what can an ops person do?
Enable code.
Rollback, yeah, that's the only. And then you can make development better because with operations. Because one of the first things that you can do is actually, when developing locally on your local machine, use production-led environments. You can use things like vagrants. You can use things like Docker to emulate production. Have the same libraries, have the same everything that runs in production, minus the data, of course. That's usually secret. And you can use these kind of tools to, for example, people that run in Kubernetes, they should use Docker to develop locally because it basically emulates the production environment. And yes, we finally reached the peak. Monitor all the things you want to be able to measure. There's actually in the, I should have included the link to the book. There's a book called The Lean Startup, which bases itself on 3 principles. You deploy, you measure, and you improve. You cannot measure if you're not monitoring, and you cannot measure if you're not monitoring the right things. So if you're monitoring servers like CPU usage, memory usage, that's useless. Applications themselves should expose metrics, and they should identify KPIs. For example, let's take GM Core that we have bullied here. What would be a good KPI for GM Core? I would say transaction failure rate would be a good KPI for GM Core. I would say
minimum response, average response,
yeah,
maximum response for each code.
Exactly. So you should expose this. That's one of the problems. You should centralize these as well. They shouldn't be localized. They should be accessible for everyone. And the reason for this is because generally in a company, applications depend on one another. And you want to be able to, when an incident happens, and it will happen, you want to be able to trace the incident across apps. So I need to be able to, a developer for GM needs to actually have access to monitoring from OM just to see, okay, these guys' latency has increased when doing requests towards GM. Because this helps a lot in TTR, time to recovery. Also, as an ops person, you should not do tasks for people. If somebody asks you to deploy, to create a new server, you shouldn't do it. You should build tools so that they can do it themselves. If they ask you to migrate data from a database to another, you should build a tool for that. You should automate everything. And that means basically that for guys that are traditionally operations or sys, they should start embracing coder practices. They should start using Git. They should start writing infrastructure and configuration as code. We should approach the site reliability engineer model, where devs support the application until something gets out of hand, and then operations takes over and receives support from the devs. And of course, the tools of the trade. In this case, for monitoring, there are a lot of tools for monitoring. Actually, I won't even bother listing them all. Some more notable ones are Prometheus and Grafana, Graphite and Grafana, New Relic, Datadog, Stackdriver, Cacti. There's a lot of them, and all of them do basically the same thing. They basically allow you to push or they pull metrics, whatever they are, into a unified view. Then there's alerting, which is another topic that's very important. You need to know if your app's up. And that's a number of things. Does it reply to HTTP? That's number one. If it doesn't actually answer to HTTP, assuming it's an HTTP app, then you have a problem. But then there are subtle differences. Does my database work? Can I talk to all of my dependent services that are mission critical for me? These are things that need to be designed from the beginning. You need to know that the database, if the database is down, the app isn't working. So you actually need to expose an alert for that. And you can do it with things like Nagios, Chinga, Pingdom, and a lot of others. And then there's logging. And logging is, I think, something that's forgotten 90% of the times. Everybody logs their own way. There's usually no centralized logging. People go and check their own logs. They're usually different formats. That's a problem because as with monitoring, you want to be able to see an aggregated, to have an aggregated view of logs, to be able to trace things across applications and across components. So there are solutions for this, which aggregate logs and allow for log shipping. Things like Splunk or the Elk Stack or FluentD.
As you said, but just to underline it, the logging should be centralized and not locally on the
It's very important to have centralized logging. And actually, one of the main themes in DevOps is that the developer or the operations guy, anyone for that matter, should not ever need to SSH or RDP to a machine. Everything should be centralized, and machines should be immutable. So you never, ever, ever need to do that. And that's actually what this is about. That being said, I am done with my slides. If you guys have any other questions, please go ahead. Lviv, are you still with us?
Yes, yes.
Do you guys have questions?
Not today, maybe when it will be more technical. Thanks for a great introduction.
That's perfectly fine. Thank you, guys. Okay, in that case, if no one has other questions, there are a couple of links that are relevant. These are things that we would like you to do. So moving forward, we'd like you guys to set up with a free-tier AWS account so that we can play around. We've provided a couple of links. I'm going to link this presentation on Mattermost and probably Skype. These are things that you need to get started in order to create an AWS account and to be able to actually create an EC2 instance and SSH to it. What we'd like you guys to do is, after you set up your AWS account, we would like that you try and deploy a WordPress instance that actually works, just to get a hang for how cloud works. There's a link in there. Also, I need to know that actually it's on the other slide. The Mattermost. So Mattermost is a chat app which we have hosted here at EveryMatrix. The URL for it I'll leave on screen until you guys connect. So that's the URL that you need to go to. I would suggest.
We have a few people who don't have a laptop, right?
You can do it from your phone if you don't have a laptop.
They're not going to be able to install AWS instances from their phone.
Ah, right.
Well, I don't know. That'd be pretty impressive.
That would be impressive. Actually, it can be done, but it's hard.
What any suggestions what we could do for these guys who don't have laptops?
You have your laptop. Yeah, you can make your own laptop and they don't have a laptop. So, yeah, I'll talk to
get two laptops.
Okay. By the way, Mattermost has a desktop client and a mobile client. I suggest using that after you initially log in.
So why do you want to use Mattermost and not Skype?
Why do we want to use Mattermost and not Skype? Well, Skype is a great medium when you want to one-to-one chats. It's a really bad medium when you want to do more than one people, and usually when you want all people to join in, go away. It also has a way better history, which is searchable, which is permanent. It supports uploading documents, links, and it actually provides those separately, and they're also persistent. So you always have access to them. So it's a better medium than Skype for these kind of things. You can just click sign up with GitLab, and it will ask you for your AD credentials in GitLab. Most of you are actually developers, so you should be familiar with GitLab.
I mean, basically Skype's more.
It is.
So we're just going to drop the Slack?
Why we're not using Slack for now is that, first of all, Mattermost is speed, at least for our needs. Second of all, Mattermost is hosted on-prem, which has its benefits and downsides. Benefit of it is that we actually get better auditing and backup and whatever not. We don't depend on.
It also helps us get fast audits.
Exactly. It also helps us get fast audits. And yeah, Slack's expensive actually. It's really, really expensive, especially if you have a lot of users because you pay per user. Plus, Mattermost is basically, so you can actually go to Channels Plus. I can actually show you how to join. So let's do a tutorial of how to join Mattermost. So this is the Mattermost desktop app. Let me just leave this channel. So in order to join the DevOps Academy channel, you just click plus here. No, you click more here, and you should be able to join DevOps Academy. And I'm running out of battery, so we can only do this for, I don't know how long, but probably 10 more minutes. If you have a charger, can I please have it? Because I left mine downstairs. Hangouts is really killing the battery. Okay, awesome. Let's see who. Hey. Cool. Now let me, yeah, you can share files, you can share links, you can share documents, you can even do things like this. Let me just.
Search by for share files. And it also has nice formatting for like sharing like codes.
Like this. It's blurry on the projector, but you get the point. Yeah. It has code formatting. Okay, so let me just put the link to the slides in here. Here you go. Not the last slide, the previous one has links to how to set up a free AWS account. On the free AWS account, you have a couple of resources for free. One of them is a free micro instance that should be enough for playing around with WordPress.
Can you set up an AWS account without credit?
No, they actually require you to specify a credit card, even if it's the free tier.
Can
you
give us a credit card? Yeah.
Can
you get it with us?
No.
Just give us your account. We'll take it from there.
Yeah, I know. And then $20,000 later.
You have that much?
No, but AWS charges you for it if you use it. And then at the end of the month, they'll be like, failure to comply. Please pay your bill.
They want to try to set up the AWS account.
How can we set up the desktop version?
Oh, set up the desktop version. So you can go over here. Actually, no, I need to go to the browser so I can show you. So you go here. There's a link here, download apps. And you can get the app for your platform from there. And then you need to go to the login flow again, unfortunately, because that's.
Yeah, but
It's a web view. Tenemos acadEMy. Excellent.
so I can go to Slack.
Yeah, we're not doing Slack. I thought about it, but the problem with Slack is that it only has 10,000 messages of history that it retains on the free tier, and it only retains it for a month, I think. And I want to have it available forever. because we might actually do this, and whatever gets discussed might be useful. They have laptops. That's great. That's fine. I think for today it's fine. That's the Mattermost apps download link. Yeah, they have Linux. It's a web view, yeah. So you manage simple. Yeah. Long live Electron. What? No, you create a personal account because we don't have a company account on AWS.
I mean, that's the alternative.
Yeah, we could actually set up a company account and seed it with some money.
But if everyone is able to set up their own free tier account, you can do it yourselves.
We won't be using it much anyway. We'll just do a couple of things on it and then switch to OpenStack, right? Might make more sense. Because micro instances are good for very small things. And you can only have one of them anyway. Plus, we could actually switch to Google Cloud later.
Well, I mean, I wanted to go through all, like at least the three.
Then you probably
like
AWS. Then you're going to make a company account. Instead of like $300.
And for Google, we can use our own.
For Google, yeah, we can use our own. Actually, Google, if you create a free tier account in Google, they actually give you $300 worth of cash or credit and 14 months. So it's actually better than AWS. It's shorter as a period, but you can actually do more with it. AWS only allows you to use like one micro instance and 1 gig of traffic and stuff like that. What's it? Support plan based, of course, cheap stuff. Why would you want premium support for a test account?
What about it's his card?
Yeah.
DigitalOcean. What's their free tier?
Yeah, I don't know. They have something very small.
I think 2 cloudlets.
2 droplets, yeah. Droplets, very small. One CPU stuff. Yeah, but the reason we want AWS is because they have things like the cloud formation, which one you guys play on. It's useful when going into automation and infrastructure, and from there we can actually monitor Terraform. Okay. And cloud formation is easier because you actually have the UI already, so it's not just code. So you can visually see what happens. Templates, yada yada yada. Acolo trebuie să facem practic. E ok. Dar ai să facem mai târziu. Ok,
yes, maybe we should do that afterwards. I mean, if we're setting them up today, it's nice to have that on the campus.
Yeah.
But then we can ask some faculty to set up a AWS, and then we'll put those. I think you can put quote on it.
Yeah, you can put a quote on it, and then we'll create IAM users for them on the company account. Okay. We can do that. Plus, it wouldn't hurt us that much to have an AWS account for EveryMatrix. Not sure if you're going to use it, but it may come in handy at some point for other things as well.
So
you should sign up. You should. You just get your own personal stuff.
and the
Where make sure, by the way, with AWS, please make sure you don't actually go over the free tier quotas, as it will be from day one if you go over.
That's the second link.
Just make sure. It's easier to say this up front than actually hope everybody reads it. Go to the next link. Here. Yeah. Now, next link on my slides. Yeah. So, this is a quick example of how to provision an AWS instance. Whoever has played with it should be familiar. We want you to actually provision a micro instance, and we want you to SSH into it. And at some point, when you're comfortable enough with that, you should, preferably today, you should actually install a WordPress instance on there. It's perfectly fine if it's slow as all hells. You don't have much resources to go on. I will keep that in a moment. Da. Da, stai încă nu facem nimic cu el, dar o să te contești cum îi facem un portal unde de bani și să facem carte de... Da, stai. Do we create an AWS account for the company?
Yeah, if we could do it, that would be good.
Okay, good.
I mean, ideally they create their own today, and then because they go through that process and they see it, and then we'll create one for future use.
Exactly.
So that we don't plan to plan.
That's what plan. So we can create it today, and then I can. Și zic că trebuie să mă ia ce să pun pe și să punem poate împreună, după care să mirăm. O să-l bate iam. O să-l bate iam, nu, o să bate iam. Să-mi dea acces să scrie cum de install or place on which environment. Okay, so WordPress. How do you what do we want you to do with WordPress? So what we want is you guys should create a micro instance, just one micro instance on AWS, and install WordPress and of course MySQL, which you need for WordPress on it. That's just for you guys to get a hang on how to create instances in AWS and to get a feel for SSHing into them. We won't be doing much of that later, but for now, it's good that you just experiment with that. Tomorrow, we actually will create more than one because we'll be going into things like CloudFormation. But for now, just play with an instance. It's a small task. Okay? Is it clear for everyone?
Yep.
Lovely. Da, să facem un cont Amazon.
Poți să bagi carte de eveniment.
Also, important thing about WordPress, I want to actually see it running over the internet. So I want to see a hello world WordPress.
Thanks
for helping. I like this room as a teaching area, presentation area actually. It's really good. But we should actually have a screen, projector screen, because my board is a bit annoying. Other than that, it's awesome.
I was even thinking to maybe Move the desks closer to the.
Yeah, that also works. Problem is actually I need to set up this desk to be less blurry.
And also have them be all face on.
Yeah. We could do school style.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Do school style. Be right back.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, you can go, which is 50 eligible? Anyone that says 50 eligible.
I strongly suggest you go for Ubuntu. So when you pick the operating system, I strongly suggest you go for Ubuntu. Don't go for Amazon Linux. That's the fourth version of CentOS. Yeah, that's perfect. Right. So, and now you can go for my phone. And it says, so basically, whenever you have to choose something in AWS, please make sure it says 50 eligible. Actually, since I'm not doing slides anymore, I could actually turn this around so people can see themselves. And switch to the webcam. Whoa, this is tricky. So here's the room here in Bucharest. I can't actually stop the stream because that's how we're actually talking to Lviv. So I might as well show them something interesting.
Yep, thanks.
How can I be sure that I'm only going to be in free tier of Amazon?
The way to make sure you're only going to be in the free tier is by choosing pretty eligible stuff, and always, very important, after you're done with the resource, you should destroy it. Just to make sure you do not overuse it.
That's actually, you don't have a limit.
Honestly, honestly, I don't know. I have never tried it to limit myself to the free tier, as I have some of my production things, my personal projects on Amazon, AWS. But there may be an option in billing. Let's check actually.
Budget details. Yeah, with 0.
Yes, you can.
Cost.
Oh. Nu, nu cred că îi face cu 0. Sau 001.
Guys, one thing to note so that you do not actually exceed the free tier. In billing, you can create a budget. In budgets, you can create a limit for 1 cent, basically. You cannot set it to 0. So you create a limit for 1 cent, so that you do not actually exceed it does not allow you to go over the free tier. Is that okay? Anyone?
1 cent.
What's a bit expensive? A bit expensive, huh? Sure. Any permissions to do what? How did you manage to not have permissions? You just created an account and you can have access to the link.
Da, dar nu știu dacă se aplică cum aș aia eu ca să aplică. Ce să fac?
No, don't. Yeah, that's fine. You need to go to the user you create the account with. If you're on an IAM user, you don't have access to the link. Only the root user has access to the link. I didn't realize you did that. I knew that was the reason why you didn't have access to the link. I was confused. How did you get it? How are you not a root user? It's fine. Creating a user is actually a security mechanism of AWS.
I hope that this thing will budget works.
I also hope
not only for notification. I hope it's.
No, it's not actually. It's a bot. At this point, every major cloud has support for billing quotas, so that you don't go over a certain budget. We've been using it extensively on G-Cloud, haven't we? Right.
And where can we see the free tier predicted instance?
Did you create it? No. No, so you can create it as you would create a normal instance.
I said launch.
Yes. So basically it says pretty eligible. For images and for instances, you'll see it. I suggest Ubuntu or whatever you prefer. So I don't really care what operating system you use. Don't use Windows though.
Yeah, I was going to say don't use my user.
It's freaking eligible, but I don't think it will run on micro. Plus, I actually want you guys to get familiar with SSHing to AWS things.
T2.micro is
eligible
for free tier, but T2.nano it's not.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you get.
And how many micro pieces can you have?
One. If I remember correctly. That's great. We're gonna set up a company account for future use. For today, I think this is. We just want to fuck around with it. Here, sign out. Do this one. Okay, that's fine. Nu pot să schimb să change și ăsta e monitorul. Nu știu ce să change ăsta. Cum să folosesc al nostru? Afară de tu, nu se poate. Nu. You need to wait. Să înapoi ceva? Mai diferit.
O să încerc să facem instanțe.
By the way, don't make ginormous volumes. So don't make big volumes. You're also limited on the amount of disk space. I don't know the limit.
I'm trying to set up an
Rezoluție de ea. Cum te conectezi? Ți-ai downloadat cheia? Da, ai pus un generator? Și nu. Da, okay, so go back to the generator. Out. Make this. Hai parola perché? C'è parola perché? Non ho tempo. Ah, cosa è adesso? So that's when it comes on. I wonder why. No. So. Anybody managed to get to SSH into their instance? What is the?
I didn't manage to get chat.
Excuse me.
I managed to do SSH into the instance.
Pentru că nu știu să scrie. Mațe de vorbe.
Așa, probably safe.
Ia să ne gândim puțin.
De ce nu ne putem conecta la ea? Ai indicat să le uităm?
Adică instalăm de mână.
So, you install WordPress by hand. I don't want Docker. If you want to go fancy, you can go fancy. I just want to see you running WordPress.
You just don't care what.
I don't care. For the purposes of this demo, the goal is to actually get you playing with AWS. That's the only goal. Yep. Deci, eu nu o să pot spune la billing oricum dacă îmi face ascunzi, dacă îmi face ascunzi. That's perfectly fine. O să facem un contract. O să punem un buget pe care să discutăm cu acadEMy. Și după aia le facem sub conturi la toți. Deci punem o grupă. Sub conturi. Și voi tu și bine, fac așa atunci. Și cu canal. E perfect, hai că facem un. Facem manager schimb.
Îți poți cai, da?
Da. Ia să vedem. Este un comand.
Să fii pe 6 oameni?
Nu. Scrie-l cu Dar vreau să vedem, vreau să vedem. Am, proiect. Oare de aici? Firewall, what could I discuss?
Nu.
Acolo vreau să vedem. Nu la tine, cu capătul ăla. So, important thing for those of you who didn't read the getting started till the end, for the AWS IAM, AWS instance, two instance tutorial. If you want to actually be able to SSH to it, you probably want to allow port 22 in your firewall rules. So AWS has this thing called a security group. Security groups are basically firewall rules that you can specify on port or port ranges and subnets. What you want to do is create a security group that allows incoming traffic to port 22, which is SSH, from any IP for now, because I don't want to bother with only whitelisting our IPs. We need to do that. Save. Source specific to I like what you do.
Hey, Alex.
I don't like the regular app. Look, it's good. And it works. Username este Ubuntu. Dacă ai folosit Ubuntu. So, the default username for the Ubuntu image is Ubuntu. If you use CentOS, the default username is CentOS.
Alex?
What? What of what?
Alex?
La contact support și întreabă dacă nu se răspunde
Okay. Well, it works.
It works. Good. I'll figure out how to install WordPress.
Ah, fuck it.
Evil. Evil. First I make you use Linux, then I get you to use PHP.
Doar și bibliotecă în casă.
Învață-mă și să folosesc PHP în cazul ăsta.
De ce?
Că mă las trebuie să trebuie să loghez.
Ce?
Da, nu trebuie să loghez. Da.
Și fac că un budget. Pentru că nu vreau să facem lucruri pe care să diverse. stil mai complicat să am văzut. O să facem una cu companie de paste. Până atunci face de jur. Sunt scârboși, că care da. E vorba. Da, e vor ca să le folosești. Și vor să fie seamless tranziție de la fi la întâi. Yes! Băduți. What do you need?
Unde
Alături este fără zero. Plus 407. Zero pe care formăm noi în general face parte din calcul.
dacă de eroare când am făcut înseamnă că nu am bani.
Înseamnă că ne de buget. So, some of you, da. Da, știu. So, some of you may be encountering an error when trying to set up a budget limit or accessing the billing page. That is normal. That is Amazon's retarded way of actually verifying your account registration. So it's going to take a while until you are actually able to be billed.
This is an old account.
This is an old account. But then you don't have to figure actually. You might as well put it in that I am trying. Okay, hai să fac un cont.
Doar notificare, pot să notifici după automat?
Da, se după automat. E că tu cum tu ai reușit să faci zero?
Nu fi editat după?
Nu, am pus budget bun, am pus $1 budget. Da, mă, deci. So, basically, deci limita, bugetul. E limită. Dar asta să ai notificare când te apropii de limită. Deci tu să spui notificare de 20 cenți.
La 1%.
Asta la 1%. Deci 1% din $1 este la primul cenți. Okay. Second. I'm gonna create an AWS account.
Alex, do you hear me?
Yeah, give me a second. I can't hear you for some reason. Can you make your microphone louder?
I think no, but I can speak louder.
Okay, wait. For some reason you're on my. Let me just switch. You're on my laptop's speakers, not on the Jabra. Give it a second. And bam. Now you should be able. This should be better now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
For some reason, your fucking Hangouts is being annoying. Okay. Okay.
Crappy WordPress.
Crappy WordPress indeed.
Crappy WordPress. Crappy PHP. availability WordPress website?
No.
Come on.
Pentru că dacă ai mai mult de o instanță, o să te...
Nu facem highlight availability noi.
I will stop the broadcast as it does not make sense to have it anymore, but I'll try to keep the hangout.